Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 10th episode of Inspiration with Ines. This is our series dedicated to inspiring conversations on wedding planning. I can't believe that this is our 10th episode. Creating this series has been so much fun. I've had the pleasure of speaking with so many professionals in the industry that have helped continue to bring our inspiration through this turbulent time. Now we find ourselves in such sunny days. Today, we are talking with Sarah Winward. She is a world-renowned artist and educator who creates enchanting florals in destinations all over the world. Taking cues from her environment where she's working, each piece of her work is a thoughtful portrait of the season and the setting. Sarah's work has been featured in publications like Martha Stewart Weddings, New York Times Magazine, Sunset Magazine, and she's been named a top florist by Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Martha Stewart Weddings. I am so honored to be bringing her in today. So let's bring in Sarah. No. Let's see. Let's bring her in. So, while she's bringing her in, there she is. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for joining us. I'm super excited to have you here. How's your day so far?
It's good. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Yeah, it's great. I am down in southern Utah right now in between jobs, so we're on the road.
I love that. I love that you're always traveling and doing something amazing. I guess we just want to, jump in and start asking some questions. So for the viewers out there, tell us your signature style. What inspired you to launch your career as a floral artist?
Yes. I always say that I feel like I got sucked into flowers. It was sort of out of my control, but the world just took me there. I've always loved flowers. I grew up just spending a lot of time in nature and just loving all of the details of the outdoors, whether it's a small flower or a tiny rock or like the big mountain landscapes. So I worked at flower shops when I was a teenager, answering phones and sweeping floors. And so I was comfortable with flowers, but I had never really designed. And honestly, I didn't even really know that flower designing was an art. You know, I had just seen dozen rose arrangements or sunflower arrangements and hadn't really seen anything that was super unique. So I just started playing with flowers on my own, just picking things on a walk or buying some flowers from the grocery store, and just making little portraits of my environment. And then started helping friends with their weddings, and then pretty soon friends of friends, and then I've got clients.
It just kept skyrocketing.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of seeing so many images of your work. I'm always so blown away by just the flowers, the environment, the backdrop. Everything you do is so tastefully done. It's I would say subtle, but yet so impactful. Your use of color. So I kind of want to jump into the next question. We know you look to texture and changing of the seasons in nature when you're creating your floral arrangements, but how do you continue to get inspired when designing? I know Ines gets asked that question all the time, so of course we want to hear your thoughts.
Right. For me, it's the new locations and different seasons. And I think it's, whether it's a dress or a floral arrangement that you're making, imagining the place where that will end up is really, I guess where I start. But really it does start with visiting the place that I'm going or looking at the flowers that will be in season or the different surroundings doing mostly destination events. Sometimes that's a site visit, where I get to go see the environment and just notice the shapes and the colors, or something as subtle as like the lichen on a rock that's nearby. And
Right.
color palettes that really complement that or feel like an extension of that environment. Or sometimes it's like you want to go bright and it's something not in the environment, but it's still important to choose a color that complements it or is a contrast to it. So just really looking around me, finding a jumping off point, and then kind of going from there. I think it's nice to talk to couples too and see why they chose their venue, and if there's a special story to it, or if there's a certain part of it that they love, and then we just kind of go from there.
That sounds great. So, cottage core or neutrals are a big floral trend right now. And can you tell us about some of those upcoming trends that you're starting to see? What are you kind of getting involved with that's new that you want to let our viewers know about?
Yeah. Yes, let's see. That is like a new term for me, but I feel like neutral colors are, feel like home to me. I come from Utah and it's dry and it's a desert. And everything is just browns and greens. And I feel like that's kind of at the core of all of my work. Um, we are, even if it's a pink color palette, I'm bringing in some brown to kind of like tone it down, bringing things down to the earth a little bit. And that's just kind of my personal preference. But I do feel like a lot of brides are really wanting something more subtle. And I think it takes a lot more to make something subtle, but once something subtle is appreciated, once it really captures the viewer, like the guests at your wedding, I think it kind of, something smaller or more delicate maybe invites them to engage with the flowers more, or a softer color palette. But then it can be more intriguing, I think, if you give them a little bit of space to dive into the arrangement and see all the different color nuances that you have going on in there.
Absolutely. We've got Fuller Janie said she's the master of desert neutrals. I don't think anyone could have said it any better. I saw what you had done with the venue Emma and Jerry,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so striking, which is how I said to myself, we really want to get Sarah on the show. I was really moved by it. So tell us a little bit about that venue and how you approached the work for that specific venue.
Yeah. That is one of my absolute favorite places to work. I'm in Geary Resort in southern Utah, right on the border of Arizona. It's that subtle beauty that I was talking about. It's quiet, and I think it just has very prescribed views. The architecture is amazing, and it really just invites guests to slow down and appreciate their surroundings. And so it can be a challenge to create flowers there because it's already so beautiful and it feels like flowers may be too much. So that's always my challenge when I'm there. And with the event that you're speaking of, let's see, there were a few different days, but my favorite one was up in, you have to kind of scramble up a rock to get into the sandy wash. And we had a dinner in that sandy wash. And I chose to just do the place setting really neutral. So it was just tone on tone sand color. But then we had bright yellow flowers. And they were super striking and just very simple. And I chose yellow because actually in that same desert in the autumn, the sagebrush there blooms that same color of yellow. So while it wasn't present there in that particular season that we had the event, it's a color that occurs naturally in that environment. So that was my inspiration there.
I love how you said that. I have that image in my mind, and when I look at those photos, it looked like you stumbled across this like magical setting that had always been there. And so it didn't seem out of place. It felt so perfect. And I wanted to know, what flower was it that you used? Because the yellow was so stunning.
Yeah, that was forsythia. So they are a blooming yellow bush that blooms, depending on where you are, anywhere between January and April. And that event was March 1st, I believe. So they weren't blooming naturally anywhere near me. So we had to have them shipped in, and we forced them open so that we could have them open for that event. There were a couple other little flowers in there. Fritillaria is another one of my favorites. It is that same kind of mustard yellow, but it actually has like a brown shaped or a brown tip on it, and it's like raisin color brown, which looks a lot like the rocks in that environment as well. So
one of our viewers, Lily Beth Wedding, says, do you ever worry about lizards, snakes, wildlife, etc. when you set up there?
yes, I saw all of those things there just a couple days ago. But I'm from Utah, so those are just, part of life for me. I think it's always surprising to see a snake, but they're usually friendly, so.
Right. And then someone else just asked about the flower. So it was forsythia?
Yes, yeah.
Forsythia. So there we go. Lifestyle by Serena. It was forsythia. Well, what advice do you have for brides that are trying to make an impactful statement on their wedding day with their floral arrangements?
Oh man, there's so many things to think about, and I know it can be overwhelming when you're planning a wedding, and there's so many different elements to think of. If flowers are important to you, I think it's great to give your florist some freedom. Of course, that's my answer. But I do think, your floral designer is an artist, and if you give them a little bit of freedom, they're comfortable with flowers, they're familiar with what's available, they can, pivot if they need to a little bit to make decisions that will ultimately result in the best product. And just, respecting them as an artist and giving them a little bit of choice there, I think just makes them happy, which comes through in the work. But I would also say for impactful floral, I love an arrangement with all one element. You can kind of see the corner here, but I have just an arrangement of all one rose right here. And right. That's such a nice way to make a bold statement with just keep it simple, all one type of flower. And then you can focus on like the shape and the movement in the arrangement or your environment if you're in a setting where you kind of want to look around. And then I think if you're on a budget, I would always advise to maybe invest in like a few really impactful moments, like a couple big installations that are unique, that everyone will remember, that are really fun, and go simple if you need to on the tables or in the other places that flowers may not be appreciated as much.
Well, I'd like to ask you about perhaps one of the more recent installations that you've done that you could perhaps give our viewers some examples of that would be impactful.
Yeah. Honestly, I guess the forsythia branches, they're pretty affordable and they're big. You can get them super tall. So just using, that's, I guess, mostly all one element as well, and it's a bold color. And I think what made that so striking was that you could just, watch the branches as they dance around and, really appreciate their shape. But it's a pretty affordable flower, and it wasn't hard to build on my end with my staff because it's all one element and it's kind of just less complicated. When we're doing like hanging installations, I would do the same thing. Some easier to make a statement with keeping things simple when you're
right.
A lot of different colors, and I know there's so much inspiration out there. It's hard to narrow in when you're choosing what you want for your wedding. But if you can try and focus on like one channel, maybe that's one flower or one texture, and just use that as your jumping off point, I think you're in a good spot.
And Waivanshi said, I love the Amangiri setup. How do you translate that to a hotel ballroom or hotel venue?
Yeah. I think, it's a little tricky. I'm always trying to just honor the space that I'm in. So obviously a ballroom. But I think, let's see, if your ballroom has a lot of patterns in it, maybe your carpet is patterned and you don't want people to look down at the patterned carpet in the ballroom. Do something that's bringing their eyes up. So they're captivated with something high, whether that's a hanging installation or some neat chandeliers or maybe some tall arrangements. instead of, trying to make ornate flower arrangements, maybe go simple with those too, but scale. Um,
Right.
Important in a
Right.
setting. Yeah. And just, giving people little moments to focus on. Um, I always try to arrange so that my flowers are kind of just mimicking the way flowers grow in real life. They're not always tight and squished together. Sometimes they're moving or facing different directions, and it's just a lot more subtle. And I think can soften an environment like a ballroom that is
Right.
structured.
I
So
think those are some really good tips. Very exciting to hear from you about how you approach a environment and how you actually lead the eye, and your choice of florals and shape, size, whether they're suspended or not. All of that is so intriguing. So for a lot of those brides that have that are lucky enough to work with you, I congratulate them. It's always nice to work with someone who has such a vision and can approach their artistry with a unique voice and authenticity. And so many of the people that we've had on this series have continued to bring that. So I want to thank you for being a part of this today. I know how busy you are. You are a destination floral artist who's constantly on the go. So thank you for taking time out of your day and for inspiring all of us today.
thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It's great to talk with you.
Great to talk with you. I hope to be able to see you in person one day. Until then, keep us inspired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Sarah. Have a good one.